Better late than never.
Oh, we are all navigating the new normal. It's so good to see you in your home. We are all working at home these days, right? I'm super excited to welcome everyone to our second virtual town hall, our community conversations for the Bronx with Senator Luis Sepulveda. He represents both Girls Prep Bronx Elementary and Girls Prep Bronx schools. Senator Sepulveda is no stranger to our schools. He's visited both of our campuses. He participated and gave away toys during our tour drive at Girls Prep Bronx Elementary in December 2018. He has asked our girls at Girls Prep Bronx Elementary to participate in his spelling bee in 2019, and he participated in our 10th year anniversary celebration for Girls Prep Bronx Elementary. We are so proud that he's been such a champion for our schools and is really impressed with the work our schools is doing in his community. Senator Sepulveda is one of 2 Latinos in our state legislature. And he's here today to tell us about the response to the COVID-19 crisis and resources in the community that may be helpful to all of you. As we get started, I want to note that we will be recording today's webinar so that those who cannot join us will be able to view at a later date. COVID-19 has impacted all of us in some way, shape, or form, and it's changed the way that we think about aspects of our lives we previously didn't put much thought to. As a leader of a group of 5 pre-K through 8 charter schools in the South Bronx and in the Lower East Side, I've been faced with leading an organization deeply committed to ensuring equity and safety and wellness to over 2,000 kids and families, not to mention ensuring our rigorous academic program can continue in a remote setting. But you have to know that our school communities and leaders have banded together in ways that have truly inspired me and members of our team and community. Our teachers and staff across the network have reached out to families at least 3 times per week when we first closed to ensure that no one was lost in the shuffle and everyone knew to lean on public prep academies during this closure. We've shifted to Google Classroom to provide a more robust and engaging academic experience for all of our scholars. We've also prioritized ensuring that tech is in the hands of our scholars, providing over 800 Chromebooks and tablets to scholars so that they have access to the internet. And so we will be talking, I know, about broadband and Wi-Fi access a little bit later, but we have done our part to make sure that our scholars have access to technology. Now we want to make sure that their families remain connected. And we've also had some amazing partners to make sure our families and our local communities have their basic needs met. So we have heard from our community the importance of understanding where the food pantries are in our neighborhoods, the importance of partnering with Red Rabbit, our independent food provider who has expanded their delivery and is delivering food not only to our school sites, but also to essential workers at local hospitals. Today, we're going to hear from the senator about all of his hard work and the ways in which his office has been leading the efforts to ensure that constituents like you who are listening have the support they need to get through this crisis. Before I turn the mic over to Senator Sepulveda, I want to remind everyone to take advantage of the Q&A function of this webinar to ask questions to the senator. We will have time to answer a few before we close today. Remember, if you have public prep specific questions, we'll be having a town hall next Friday at 5:30 p.m. for families. Without further ado, Senator Sepulveda, welcome.
Hi, everyone. First of all, I want to thank Superintendent Bradshaw for having me on the program today. Principal Chris Ostaniak and Guillen and Yvonne Guillen, who I know very well. She's become a fixture in our office. She does great work for the community, for the charter schools throughout the state of New York. This has been a difficult time for many, and I understand that a lot of the things that have been happening were unexpected. But it is during these times where we have to come together as a community. We have to show our compassion, our commitment, and our devotion to people who live within our district. And that is essentially what we've been doing in my office. Because of safety concerns for my staff, the office is physically not open, but we are working 24/7 for people in the community, different functions. One of the biggest needs has been food insecurity. Working with the Food Central Kitchen, with Fresh Direct, with the Hunts Point Produce Market, with for-profit and not-for-profit entities, we have been able to deliver approximately anywhere between 7,500 meals a week to 8,000 meals a week. We have also worked to deliver hand sanitizers, personal protection equipment. We have worked to deliver information. We've helped considerably when it comes to providing resources for our community. So, for example, the unemployment insurance issue has been a prevalent issue in our community. Unfortunately, the state was not prepared for the number of requests that we have had throughout this pandemic. We have essentially worked almost as a unemployment insurance agency, where we have processed hundreds and hundreds of claims for people that have needed assistance. There is a site in the Bronx called Bronx Impact, and they track the number of clicks, for lack of a better term, of either agencies or phone numbers that provide assistance to the community. And I'm very proud to say that our district office has the second most clicks of any other site in the Bronx. That's, I think, 311 is ahead of us. And that is because of the dedication that my office and my staff, wonderful group of people, have done throughout this process. I mean, they're out there every day helping deliver meals, helping deliver hand sanitizers. We have gone through almost every housing complex in our district, NYCHA in particular, where so many people have needed assistance, and the pandemic has devastated these communities. We have gone there to deliver food, to deliver personal protection equipment, to deliver just basic information and needs that these individuals need in these housing developments. We've worked closely with our TA presidents, with our teachers, with our principals. We've gone to schools to make sure that the services that the city's providing for grab-and-go meals are adequate, to make sure that particular needs of religious communities are met, like halal foods for the Muslim community. We have a very large Bangladeshi American population in our district. We have made sure that people that are in fear of losing their apartments are protected, going after unscrupulous landlords who have used this pandemic to intimidate or tried to intimidate and threaten people and have them removed from their units. We have stepped forward to help them. Now, the state, before the major crisis took hold, we anticipated some things, and we did some things to make sure that we can help individuals that may be suffering from this crisis. So what we did are some of the things that I'll enumerate. That we guaranteed paid sick leave for at least 5 to 7 days for every employee. We also guaranteed 2-week paid sick leave for people that are infected with COVID virus. We also expanded telehealth and internet connection to underserved area, and more needs to be done there. We know that some of the internet providers are working, like Comcast, are working to expand services for free in poor communities. We also increased unemployment insurance funding by $1 billion and are working with the State Department of Labor to make sure that people can get this help, because, again, we have had to pick up the slack. People from outside of our district are calling my office for assistance because we've essentially developed an expertise in how to get people to navigate through the process and get the help that they need. We worked diligently with our colleagues in the Senate to make sure that we restored about $300 million to Medicaid, which were potentially Medicaid was going to be cut, and $100 million in hospital funding. Imagine losing $100 million during this crisis for hospitals. We were able to reverse that. We were able to make sure that our school budgets were not slashed, although they were not increased. We made it a priority to make sure that our school budgets in no way suffer a decrease from what they received last year. There was a moratorium put on housing eviction cases of 150 days, which ends around August. and a moratorium on foreclosures on mortgage in the state of New York. So right now, the leader of the state Senate created a subgroup to deal with cancellation of rents or rent issues. Because of my expertise in housing issues, in my first life, I was a real estate housing lawyer that worked closely providing free legal services to the community. So I really have firsthand knowledge of the fear people have when it comes to losing their units. So we put together a package of bills that will provide relief in the short term to many people. It's about $1 billion package. It's going to be available to people who really need it. So individuals that are receiving their paycheck really shouldn't benefit from this. We should focus on providing all the monies to individuals that are not receiving pay and need help staying in their apartments. We're also going to provide assistance to small homeowners that have, 1 to 2 to 3 family homes that rely on the rent to pay their mortgages. They shouldn't suffer as well. They shouldn't be forced into foreclosure because of this crisis. So we have a pretty comprehensive package that we're putting together for rent, for mortgage relief. And I know that even though I'm not in the second subgroup of senators that are working on raising revenue to pay for some of the things that we need for the state right now. Next week, the Senate will have a conference and a session. It'll be through video conferencing, and we're going to propose all this legislation so that we can provide some help. The last thing I want to say is, unfortunately, a lot of what we do is dependent on the federal government. Now, I hope I don't offend anyone by saying that the president has been an abysmal failure during this crisis. And for some reason, he has a particular animus to states that are run by governors of the Democratic Party, and a particular animus to a state where he came from, essentially. And so he's threatened us in many different ways not to provide the funding that we need. He's trying to punish us for being sanctuary cities and things that shouldn't really matter during this crisis. Right now, whatever party affiliation you have should be tertiary. Right now, we should be focusing on helping people survive, get through this crisis, being able to put food on their tables, and being able to make sure that we prevent an outbreak, a second outbreak now, but an outbreak in the future like this. And that is essentially what we've been focusing on, me as a senator in the Senate and with my colleagues in government. I think you're muted. There you go.
Look at you, Zoom bingo, you won. Senator Sepulveda, I'm so excited to learn so much more. I'm sure our families are about the work that you're doing in the Senate along with your colleagues. As you said, it's just so important that we are more than just New Yorkers. We are Americans, and we are trying to be strong and united during these times. We want to get some audience engagement just so you can learn a little bit about who's here. So we're going to do some quick polling. And so the first question is, which public prep campus do you represent? So go ahead and click which public prep campus do you represent so that our senator can see where you are from. This is the new technology for us.
So far, we have a Bronx 1 prep.
All right, Girls Prep Bronx Elementary is in the house. Okay. And then our second question, given everything that you've already heard the senator give in his overview, we really want to learn from the audience, what do you want to hear more about? Is it wellness and self-care opportunities, food security, food insecurity opportunities, financial support, talking to your children about COVID? Is there any one of these 4 topics that interest you as we are trying to drill down into questions for the senator? And there is another question, and I'm sure we can respond, that's asking for, they are already asking for your address and telephone number, Senator Sepulveda, because people want to get directly in contact with you. So I know that we have a slide, but we can also put that in the chat so that we can make sure that our families are following up with you and your team. So I'm just going to ask my team to help me with the polls, because I don't see the results. I just see the actual poll. I see some folks in the chat.
Oh, there you go.
All right. So very strong representation from Girls Prep Bronx Elementary, followed by Boys Prep Bronx, our brother school on the Grand Concourse. And we also have some Lower East Side families. Thank you, welcome. And our new school that is starting, I think you know this, Senator, we are launching Girls Prep Bronx 2, and they will be co-located at Boys Prep. So we are so excited to see all of our families here. And in terms of, overwhelming, two topics that we want to learn more about: financial support and wellness and self-care. So financial support received 42% of the votes, and wellness and self-care received 31% of the votes. So we're going to start there with our questions and see how this conversation goes, because that's what our families want to hear more about.
Okay.
Can you tell me a little bit more? I know you spoke about unemployment insurance and how your office has helped with families. I think there are two potential issues that we're seeing with our community. One is that we have, as the economy has shut down and started to ramp back up, that people are coming in and out of employment. And so I think people have questions about how do they access benefits when maybe they haven't been completely unemployed. So maybe the number of hours they're working has decreased. What kinds of resources are there for those who are underemployed? And then if you have recently been furloughed or laid off because of the economy, how do you actually access those resources? How long does it take? How do we get people the help that they need so that they can stabilize their families and obviously support their children?
Sure. Well, first of all, there's no one solution that fits, or I can respond to all the questions. It's very individually based. There are people that have applied for unemployment insurance since end of March, when this all began, who to some degree have not received the benefits that they're entitled to. So what my office does is, once they reach out to my staff, and I see that on the slide you put the number, there's also an email address you can call or reach out to team@senatorsepulveda.com, and also send us an email and we'll respond to that. But it's very individual based. So if any person that's on this town hall wants particular information, I urge them to call us at 718-991-3161 or to email us. And my staff has resolved so many different issues that I'm sure that we can help most people. It is because we've been so successful at helping people that, as I said, people as far north as Buffalo has reached out to my office seeking assistance. So we have great people that have been helpful. The person who essentially navigates most of these waters is my deputy chief of staff, Fiorella Bini. But my staff, all of them, are committed to helping everyone and anyone that needs assistance. So start by calling my office and we can help you. Look, we had to work closely with the Department of Labor. We've had meetings with them because of some of the difficulties that people are facing with getting their assistance. They have streamlined the process a little better now. There's still more work to be done, but it's certainly better than it was 2 months ago. So reach out to my office and someone will be there to help you.
Let's say that number again. I have 718-991-3161.
That's correct.
All right. Thank you. Next question is around wellness and self-care. So a lot of families are looking for supports around how to speak to their children around the trauma that we have all collectively experienced, and also what types of emotional and trauma resources are available in our community. Are there any resources that you would recommend for children, for adults? As you know, the Bronx is the borough with the highest asthma rate, and folks are wondering if there's any direct correlation with that and COVID-19. There is some anxiety in our community.
Well, first, let me address the issue of emotional or mental health that the community may need. There's a stigma with people seeking mental health, and there shouldn't be. Mental health is prevalent in our communities. Uh, it is like essentially any other illness that needs treatment. And when people are locked in apartments in a very limited space, that can lead to people who need assistance with mental health. The city has several resources that I would recommend. Uh, there is, first of all, New York City Well, which is a 24/7 mental health support system, and it comes in more than 200 languages. So if anyone is in need of that, they can call the 311 to get the information, or they can visit nycwell.cityofnewyork.us. That's one site that I certainly recommend. New York State also has an emotional support hotline for the COVID crisis. And that number is 1-844-863-9314. A lot of the individuals that have asked us for assistance, this is where we have essentially sent them for resources, and we've gotten positive responses. So I urge you to reach out to them. But again, as I'm going to be saying throughout this town hall, if you need more information, again, call my office.
That's why we love you, and your constituents love you too. What about this issue of asthma? Is there anything that we can do for families around children and asthma? I know it's an issue close to your heart.
There seems to be can you hear me? I'm sorry.
We can hear you, but there seems to be a delay in the feed, or at least on my end.
Hello?
We're here. There you are. You're back.
Okay. Okay, here we are. So there seems to be a direct correlation between health and the coronavirus in terms of fatalities and severe cases. Not all, but generally speaking, people that have pre-existing conditions are at greater risk of dying from the coronavirus or suffering a terrible session or infection with the coronavirus. And children have fared better, but individuals that are older, let's say seniors that are the diabetics or have heart diseases, they tend to do not as well. Now, one thing that I want to caution parents about is that there is an illness amongst children between the ages of birth to 18 that is related to the coronavirus called the Kawasaki disease or Kawasaki type disease, and it tends to impact the lungs of young children. So if you know children that have asthma, I would strongly recommend that parents take extra precautions. The cities and the state and some other states are opening up. I think the opening up process is happening too soon because we still, I don't believe, have this under sufficient control to prevent a second wave. And I think if we continue to go on the way that we're going, maybe not so much in New York City because we are taking extra measures, but there is going to be a second wave. Protect your children, take extra measures to keep social distances with them. Make sure that they wash their hands on a regular basis. I mean, some of the things that have driven the infection rate in New York City down are the same common sense things that we've been talking about: social distance, hard surfaces. The virus tends to last a little longer on hard surfaces. We don't know exactly how much time. It could be anywhere from 20 minutes to 5 hours. That really the scientific evidence is not essentially determined yet where we are in terms of hard surfaces. But certainly, when it comes to children, we should take no risks. And parents, please take all necessary precautions, even more precautions, with your children.
Thank you. We have been pushing that message too. So we are aligned. Stay safe. Make sure you're maintaining social distancing so that we can come back together soon as a community and wash those hands.
Absolutely.
Let's pivot a little bit and talk about, we do have some of our families who are undocumented. And so I'm just wondering if there are any special programs or supports. I know you're going to start with Call Our Office, but again, I know that you were a great champion of the Green Light Law in 2019. And so if there are any additional resources, we want to make sure that our families know that they can come out of the light and ask for help. And even if you are undocumented, you still have access to Senator Sepulveda. So is there a message you want to say to our families who are potentially anxious about that issue?
Yes. So the city has set up, mostly through charitable organizations, resources to help individuals that are undocumented immigrants. There are some resources available. We certainly in my office will connect individuals. We respect their privacy. We protect their privacy. As you indicated, I have been an extremely strong advocate for the undocumented community because it is one of the most marginalized communities in the state of New York. So we will continue to provide assistance for them. Look, unfortunately, for reasons not clear to me at the state level and certainly at the federal level, the undocumented community, the immigrant community has not been treated fairly, which is unfortunate because a lot of the essential workers, frontline workers, people that are cleaning the subways, cleaning the streets, are immigrants, and in many cases, undocumented immigrants. They are putting themselves at risk. They're putting their lives at risk. So we are doing our part to help them with food or with testing sites and letting them know that their immigration status is irrelevant if they need this kind of assistance. Now, I am pushing a bill in the Senate with Assemblywoman Catalina Cruz, herself once an undocumented immigrant and is now a member of the New York State Assembly. Catalina and I are pushing a bill so that the relief that individuals get for funeral expenses, which right now, as the legislation stands right now, doesn't allow undocumented immigrants to access these funds. So the bill that we're pushing is so that undocumented immigrants can access this fund, because your immigration status should determine the dignity of you dying, the dignity that your family has, and if they have to bury you. So we are pushing that piece of legislation so that everyone gets assistance if they need so with funeral services. I know that many of the healthcare facilities, hospitals, they don't question your immigration status. If you are ill, go to a hospital. Or you can go to any kind of community-based health organization like Urban Health. I know is one of them. If you're ill, go to them. Don't worry about your status. People will help you.
Thank you. I'm so appreciative, and I know our families are appreciative and staff of hearing those thoughts. We're going to pivot to internet access. So as I shared earlier, we have done our part to make sure that we have shared and loaned Chromebooks to our families, as well as tablets. At last counts, we had provided about 30% of our scholars across public prep with tablets so that they have the tools that they need to learn in this virtual environment. And we're quite alarmed to learn very early on that Wi-Fi access and internet connectivity is very uneven, particularly in the Bronx. Many of our families have benefited from the private-public partnership with cell phones, increasing their data plans, and cable companies also offering free cable and Wi-Fi. However, those 60 days are coming up. And so we're just wondering what kinds of, or can you talk more about, what types of opportunities will be available in our communities so that they can have access to free or low-cost Wi-Fi, because it really is an opportunity to close the economic opportunity gap.
Sure. So we that's some of the things that we're considering with our legislation and with the budget. We gave the governor emergency powers to deal with a lot of these issues. I know that the governor is speaking with the internet providers to make sure that they provide service access to poor communities. And we're going to be very vigilant. Look, under the current circumstances, we know how critical it is to educate our kids to have internet access, regardless of the zip code that you come from or the bank accounts that your parents may have. It is critical. I believe that at the end of the day, the entire educational system has changed and is going to change. I think that internet, it was already playing a great role in educating our kids. I think that role is going to be quadrupled now. I think Zoom classes are going to be part of the curriculum. Now you have children, for example, that if they're ill and can't go to a class, but they can still get on a video class. But for that to be successful, and so that it doesn't have a desperate impact on poor children, the internet providers are going to have to step up and provide broadband to our communities. And I know that our communities are in need, and our conference, our Senate conference, is going to make sure that this issue is resolved, because at least not in my watch am I going to allow our children to receive less of an education than kids that come from wealthier neighborhoods. That's unacceptable. It's unacceptable to most elected officials, certainly to the governor and the mayor. And I think that's one issue we all come together as one to make sure that the internet providers do the right thing.
We are greatly comforted by hearing that, and we will certainly support any advocacy efforts that you need on our end so that you have stories of our families to understand how important this partnership has been in the real lives of your constituents across the Bronx and in New York. There is a question that's come up a couple of times in our chat, and so I'm just going to throw it to you. There was an announcement earlier today that every child from a public school will get $420. Do you know about this legislation? It's a federal aid program. If not, we have put an answer in the chat, but.
Well, I believe it's part of the HEROES federal legislation. We have to wait and see if the Senate Republicans are going to sign off on it. Their level of resistance to helping these communities is irrational. And hopefully they will see the light at the end of the tunnel and understand that at the overall scheme, this is really a pittance that can have a great impact on students. So we too are vigilant about it. We're going to see if it's going to actually happen. It would require the governor, the Republican Senate to sign off, and certainly the president. Hope is eternal, hope springs eternal, and I'm hoping that it'll be part of what our kids get in the immediate future.
And just a follow-up or clarification, this is a federal stimulus package that requires the Republican-controlled Senate to approve it. It's been approved on the Democratic House of Representatives side. We're waiting for the Republican Senate to approve it, and then the president signs it into law, just so that everyone is aware. And just a plug to make sure that, charter schools are public schools, so let's make sure that charter schools are able to access, charter school families are also able to access this law. It's not restrictive and closes out our families, your constituents as well. Yeah,
that's something that, I tend to, I have to remind people on a regular basis that charter school children are public school children. And
right.
Everything that every other student deserves. And unfortunately, sometimes people forget that, and the charge of elitism and all that comes into play, but nothing could be further from the truth as far as I'm concerned.
Well, it is time to go to our audience. I know Yvonne has been working, as you said earlier, is just a tireless community advocate. So we have some potential live questions from audience members. I'm going to turn it over to Yvonne to introduce the first person.
Hello, Yvonne. How are you?
Hi, how are you? Hey, Janelle. My first person, she wasn't able to log on, but you could go onto the doc and start it off from there. Thank you, Senator. Hi, everyone.
So the first question is, what is the city doing to ensure small businesses are receiving relief? And what efforts are in place to ensure that they continue to be operational? And I think within small businesses, we should include micro businesses, our bodegas, hairdressers, barbershops, cash-based communities that are driving engines, but have been hugely impacted by this pandemic?
At the state level, the federal level, the city level, there were several financial packages that were supposedly made available to small businesses. Unfortunately, some entities that are large businesses, got millions of dollars, yet the small mom and pop store really didn't get, I think, the kind of consideration, at least from the federal level, that they should have. People have to understand that the biggest employer in the country are small businesses. So there is a series of packages that you can still apply for. This is going to require people that have businesses that have had maintained pristine records. That means pay taxes, pay any fees that are required by the state or the city. If your records are in order, there are several packages that are available. Again, my office can direct you to the right packages and help you, can connect you with the agencies that are helping facilitate those loans. I know that in my district, there are many small business owners that have attempted to get access to this money. Some have been successful, some haven't. But the biggest issue is maintaining records. This is why it's important that small businesses do the right thing, submit the correct forms, pay their taxes, so that they have now a record of existing and they can access some of these loans that are being provided, small interest, in some cases no interest loans, that are being provided by the federal and state government to help them stay afloat.
Great, thank you.
They can go to a website called sba.gov. Again, that's Small Business Association, sba.gov, and there's a wealth of information there for small businesses.
So everyone is already looking ahead to the fall. I cannot tell you how many questions we are receiving about reopening. I'm wondering how the Senate and you are thinking about reopening and the types of supports schools will need once we are reopened.
Well, again, schools today are not where schools were when I was a student 100 years ago. Schools are more community-based entities now than ever before. You see that you have healthcare facilities set up in schools now, food pantries, even things like washer and dryers for children that live in shelters that don't have the resources to be able to go to school with clean clothes. More of that is going to occur. It's going to have to occur. I don't want to sound like an alarmist, but again, I am extremely concerned about opening schools in the immediate future because we haven't done sufficient tracing. We don't have a vaccine, and it's very difficult to tell kids maintain social distance. I mean, children are children, and so what are we going to do to be able to assure that our schools don't become breeding grounds for spreading the coronavirus once traditional school days go into effect? So I'm resisting starting too soon. With that in mind, and the resources that are available, what you're seeing now are the video classes. And the video classes should be happening year round, not just, there should be no more summer in the way that we see summer day off. It should be that students, if an hour, half an hour, not just those that go to summer school, but school children that don't need summer school help, but are getting resources, so you can spread out the number of resources they get in a way that'll be helpful to students. So we're going to have to do a lot of this kind of stuff. We spoke about access to the internet. We spoke about tablets. These are the resources that I'm pushing to make sure that our students get. I've had direct conversations with the New York City Chancellor about making sure that they provide these services. I've spoken with him about, our families that may not be either computer literate or English proficient that need help. And there should be hubs established in either areas or within the schools to make sure that they get their help. Look, you guys, your school, the charter schools have done a better job at this than a traditional private school or public school. So we can learn from what you've done. We can certainly, and I know that your school and many of the other charter schools are willing to help. And I believe that the relationship has gotten much better than it was before. But to some degree, you can lead the way to make sure that we get the kind of resources and new way of educating our kids that you didn't see before this crisis, but you're certainly going to continue to see going forward.
Thank you for that. We are absolutely open to partnership, and as all of our families know, our scholars are fully engaged in synchronous learning, which is small group time with their teachers and whole group time with their teachers every day as young as pre-K. And we're really proud that we're some of the few who are doing that.
Ms. Marshall, think of this also. All right, you have a cap of the number of students you can take in a physical structure. That cap doesn't have to exist in a video classroom structure.
Well, we're going to need your support to help us with that legislation.
I mean, that's the way things are going to be in the future. Now, if once upon a time you can only have 300 students, the technology is there. Well, you could have 1,000 students.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the school can be somewhere where they go periodically, but certainly, you know, you can do a lot more now with the resources that you can do. A lot more can be done with the technology that we have to expand the footprint of charter schools in the city of New York.
Well, we certainly are working with other charters to think about how to reimagine schools. And I know this is an issue near and dear to the governor's heart and your heart as well. So I'm looking forward to follow-up conversations as we think about how do we use this crisis as an opportunity to transform an educational system that was put together for a very different economy than what we're in today. So appreciate those words as we're thinking about the future.
All right, well now, unfortunately, I have another town hall on food insecurity that I have to sign on in 2 minutes. So,
no worries. So let me go to the closing and just say thank you, Senator Sepulveda, for spending this time with us. We are so grateful. Let's get those quick hits, which was, I heard if you need help, you call your office. What is your number again so everyone can hear?
718-991-3161, or you can email us at team@senatorsepulveda.com, and we will be there to help. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you everyone for being a part of this, our second town hall. We have all of our information and resources up for families. Again, we are so honored that you're such a friend and supporter and champion for the Girls Prep Bronx community and all of the public prep academies. We're just so honored that you are spending this time with us this evening. Thank you so much, Senator Sepulveda. It's good to see you.
Thank you all for having this, this town hall, and any parent, again, please reach out. We're here to help.
Thank you.